Alright guys, so today we're going to finish up 2.4 with directed graphs and look at a couple more examples. Well, actually probably just one more example. Okay, so an interesting application of directed graphs is to model how many members of a set influence each other. Because influence is usually not exerted equally in both directions, we use directed graphs as models in these situations. For example, Big Mart wants to build a shopping center and is receiving opposition from the residents of Peaceful Town. Big Mart's lawyers suggest that the best approach is to get approval for the project to gather support from the most influential members of the township zoning board. After careful investigation, this sounds above board, right? Big Mart's lawyers determine the patterns of influence listed in this table below. Use the table to determine which board member has the most influence. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a directed graph. So council member Alvarez has influence over Cohen, Ellis, and Ferrari. So that means he tells things to these people. Okay, so we're going to put Alvarez here. Okay, and let me find my little ruler. And he's going to have influence on Cohen. We'll just put Ellis right here. And Ferraro. So we need to connect all these people to the A. Let's see if I can fix this so y'all can see that better. There we go. Alright, and then... Oh no, that's not the line that I needed. Well, I think he's going to connect there in a little bit. Yeah, he'll connect in a little bit. So I'll just leave that alone for now. Alright, so Alvarez has influence over Cohen, has influence over Ellis, and has influence over Fiaro. Okay, now Baker has influence over Ferraro. So I'm going to put old Baker right here. Baker has influence over Ferraro. Okay. Cohen has influence over Baker and Ellis. Cohen has influence over Baker and Ellis. So Cohen has influence over Baker and Ellis. Okay, Davis has influence, and we'll stick Davis. Let's see. We'll stick Davis right here. Okay, Davis right here. And he has influence, or he or she has influence over Baker, Cohen, and Ellis. So Davis has influence over Baker, Ellis, and Cohen. Alright, cool. So Ellis has influence over Baker. I'm actually going to white out this E and put it over the top since I'm going to have to draw a line. Let's try that again. There we go. So we're going to put this E right here. So that way we're not drawing a line through any letters. Ellis has influence over Baker, and Ferraro has influence over Ellis, and, well, I said I wasn't going to draw over a letter. Guess what? I just did. And Cohen. Okay, so let's make these dots well seen. Alright. So that's our drawing of who has influence over who. Now, flipping over, two-stage influence is a directed path of length to between two members. So the length can be, it's two-stage, that means it can only be 2 lines long. Okay? How many ways can Alvarez influence Ellis, directly or indirectly, in 2 stages? So I have my original one that I drew earlier before I met up with you guys. So we need to get from Alvarez to Ellis in 2 steps, okay? Or directly. So we can do Alvarez straight to Ellis. Okay, that's the direct. Okay, I can go Alvarez to Cohen to Ellis. That's 1, 2. That's 2 steps. Then I could go, what other letters come into E? D, but I can't get there in 2 steps. F. A. F. E. So there are 3 ways that I can get there in 2 stages or less. Okay? Now, now we're going to create a table to represent the total of direct and 2-stage influences exerted by board members. So to get to A, you can't do that. Okay, so that's 0. A to B. So I can go here to here. That's 1. I can go here to here. That's 2. And the only other way to come in is to D. There's no other. So that's 2 ways. Okay? Okay. And then A to C. I can get from A to C by going here. I can get to A to C by going here. Oops, you can't see that, can you? Sorry about that. I can get from A to C directly. So that's 1. And the other way to come into C are right here, which I can't get there in 2. Or this way, F to C. So that would be 2 ways. And I'm sorry these lines are not straight, but it will do. Okay, A to D. Now, are there any lines coming into D? No. So you can't get into D. Are there any lines coming into E? Yes. Okay, so to get from A to E, we have 1, we have 2, we have 3. So to get Ferraro, A to F is 1 way. And then the only other road into Ferraro is by B, and I can't get there in 2. So that's 1. Okay, so for that first row, Alvarez has an influence of 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 3 is 7, 7 and 1 is 8. So Alvarez has 8 total direct and 2 stage influences. Now, let's go from B to A. So can I get from B to A? Well, nothing can actually get to A because there's no roads into A. So we're going to put zeros. Well, I guess I should have done them in different colors, shouldn't I? Where did my blue pen go? And then my black pen. And then I'll just use my pencil. Also, there are no roads into D. So we can put zeros here as well. Okay, get from B to B, you can't get to yourself. Okay, so I can go B to B and put a 0. But that also means that C to C gets a 0, D to D gets a 0, E to E gets a 0, and then F to F gets a 0. That's a little less work you have to do, right? All right, so let's go through and do the ones we can do. So B to C. So B, and I'm trying to get to C. So there's only one road out of B, and it's here. So I can go 1, 2. So there's one way out right there. Oops, that's on the wrong line, isn't it? Come on, Miss Evans. All right, then B to E. Okay, B to E. I can go one way there. Okay, and B to F. I can go one way there. So Baker has 3 influences. So Baker's not very influential. Alvarez is looking pretty influential right now, but let's see who's going to be the most influential. All right, so C to B. C to B, there's 1. Here's the other road out. There's 2. Okay. C to E, there's 1. And then there's no way to go from B to E, so there's just 1. Okay. C to F. I can go C to E, or C to B, B to F. There you go. There's 1. So this one has 4, so better than Baker, but Cohen's still not pulling all the strings. Looks like Alvarez is. But let's go see if these other guys can do anything. So Davis, D to B, there's 1. D to C, there's 1. D to E, there's 1. D to F, there's only one road into F that we can get through to get there. There is this road, but you can't get over there, so there's 1 there. So that's also 4. So Davis and Cohen have about the same amount of influence. Now Ellis to Baker, there's 1 there, and that's the only road out. D to B. Hang on a second. Oh, D to B has a lot. I'm wrong. For D, I have a lot of wrong. Let's try this again. You live and you learn. Okay, so D to B, I can go D to B, DE to B, DC to B. So there's 3 ways there. Okay, and then D to E, I could go D to E, DC to B, E. So there's 2 there. There's 5, 6, 7. So Davis is actually kind of a bigwig, but not quite as big as Alvarez. All right. So then, okay, E to B, 1. E to C. I can go E to B, but I can't get out to C. In fact, the only one I can get out to is E to F. E, B, F. So there's 2 there. All right. F to B. There's 1 there. There's 2 there. Okay. Then F to C. F to C. And then there's just 1 there. And then F to E. There's F to E, FC to E. So there's 2 there. So that makes that 5. Okay. So now we rank the board members based on their influence. So we'll go Alvarez. Then we'll go Davis. Then you want Cohen. Nope, you want Ferraro. I'm telling you what, guys. Sorry about making so many mistakes today, but at least they're little ones. Ferraro. Then Cohen. Then Baker. The person with the least amount of influence is Ellis. Okay. So those are your rankings. So you definitely want to get Alvarez on your side. If you can get Alvarez and Davis on your side, you're probably golden. If you can get those 3 on your side, you've got it in the bag. Okay. So that's our lesson for today. If you have any questions, please let me know.